What is up, everybody? My name is Alex, and welcome to The Broth, the most fun, serious show on the internet. Today, I'm finna go off, okay? Alright, I got a lot. I thought I had a show. Thanks for being here, whoever's here with me right now. I just messaged a bunch of people that I was like, there's a bunch of people I haven't even told I have a show that'd be into it. So maybe I was being a little shy. But good to see you. I thought I had one show, and as I was preparing, I realized I got a week's worth of material. Why be political? I am political. This meme here says a lot about my politics. Um, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. I understand why people are completely disenchanted, completely checked out, feeling like it's all, 100% fake. I get it. But at the same time, we know right and wrong, and we're called to, as Christians, we're called to fight for justice, for righteousness, and that is sort of fleshing this argument out that we have to be political. Is the There's going to be an overview of that, but as I was getting ready, I started thinking about so many different angles. So I'm going to talk a little bit about I'm going to acknowledge the skepticism. I'm going to acknowledge, that, what a mess it is, and the temptation, and, even the justifications for leaving that to kind of the realm of of Satan, the satanic circus, and just wait for Christ. I get it, but we're gonna talk about the question: what if stepping away is not the answer? And so a lot of my thoughts on that. We live in a satanic inversion situation, and I think one of the things that can cause us to do is what we know of as things are. We see the satanic inverted version of a lot of things and assume that the thing itself is evil. Like an example of that would be like money. You know, so God created gold and silver, and it's pretty and it's useful to us for trade and things like this. And we live in this satanic, Federal Reserve, private Western Central Bank, system where our money is just printed by people who control us, and they don't. We're competing with people with infinite money, and our society's super greedy, and it makes it seem like money itself is evil, and that can cause us to live in poverty, but not in the sort of monk with a vow of poverty sort of way, but in this the struggling to make ends meet and not having any time or efficacy in fighting evil in our lives, or just supporting our values. So we're going to talk about that. Core argument here is that Christians have to take part in politics. And I don't mean everybody. I do not mean everybody. But more of us. I'm going to use Trump as an example after I lay out these arguments. We're going to talk about Trump, and I'm going to talk about why I support him. And I feel like I understand, I feel like I understand all the arguments on that one. The idea that he's a shill, or he's a useful idiot, or he's, a well-meaning pawn, or he's evil, or, he's certainly not the savior. I'm not going anywhere near that, but we're going to talk about him. He's sort of very symbolic for, I'm in America, I'm an American, so it makes sense to use him, but he's also very symbolic for kind of battles in the world, between ideologies and over our future. And the stakes are more than material. I think this is where something a lot of Christians miss, is the stakes of politics are people's souls. It's the future of your people, of your nation. We've really been programmed to just not think that way, not think of we're just individuals, right? We're all just interchangeable, plug and play, cogs. We're individuals. We're not. We're members of tribes. We're people. We're members of nations. Our people have soil, and we have children, and we should care about the future for our children. And it's not just their physical. It's not just our children's economic well-being or physical safety that's at risk. At some point, our society is sending a lot of people to hell. There's no doubt about that. Like Christ can heal anything, but you can't argue it's not going to be a little harder if you're exposed to hardcore pornography at 8 years old to find your way to him. Think about that versus somebody that was born during the millennial reign. Take away or more conventionally, the Middle Ages. So everything's at stake, and I think the Bible bears this out, and history bears out that great men and leaders are the history makers, for good and ill. But for great men do great things, and we've gotten so beaten over the head, and we're so demoralized. It's like we've lost track of this. So, yeah, I've got so much to say, man. I went through a whole evolution myself with this stuff, like being very engaged in politics, but believing a lot of the lies. Believing I was on the left, and I pretty much bought the lies of conservatives and right-wing people. And then I became a conservative, and then I saw past that too. But I didn't become apolitical. I didn't become. It's not all a Hegelian dialectic. It's not a false dichotomy. There are many false dichotomies drawn. There are many lines that are immaterial. But, these gentlemen here, they would be called the far right because they're horrified and disgusted by evil. And that is today also. So let's get into some Bible quotes. Ecclesiastes 10:2. As the judge of the people is himself, so also are his ministers. And what manner of man the ruler of a city is, such also are they that dwell therein. Basically telling you deserve the masters you get. You deserve the leaders you get. You get the leaders you deserve, I should say. We need to be engaged in this. We need to step up. Yeah, another thing I want to say is just kind of a message to, I'm going to bring kind of two worlds together a little bit. I'm entering a community of, I'm going to probably bring a few worlds together. So my Twitter presence is largely Catholic right-wing political, pro-West stuff. And so there's going to be, and some of my friends are like hardcore political. And I have some friends that are like, they kind of are about all the same stuff. I'm in a group chat where like, we're flat earthers. We're all Christians. We're all right-wing. We all feel the same way about Trump. But also then now I'm entering this community of little seasoners, little seasoned eschatologists, whatever we call ourselves. And I'm very excited to connect more with you guys. And a lot of you are very apolitical, and you come from all different backgrounds. I'm sure we're all over the world. And, I love you guys. I love everybody. Um, and I think it's going to be really cool to create a community. It'll be a cross section of some interesting ideas and people. And so sometimes I'll be speaking more, what I'm saying will be more directed to some of you or some others of you. Or it'll be a hypothetical person, that's somebody else. But anyways, oh, something that I would like to see more of, because I have been part of the conspiracy, quote unquote, community for a very long time. It was 2003 or 4. I'm an older guy. 2003 or 4, I was in college and I had an internet connection in my room, and the internet was sort of just becoming good enough to really learn some things. The truth community was emerging in the internet at that time, probably earlier, but that's when I found it, and I think when it started getting a little bit, less clunky. Way before social media, though. And I learned that 9/11 was not what we were told. And that was my introduction in many ways to this world. And what I'll talk about Paul from understanding conspiracy probably a lot, because I've been just binging on his content because I'm trying to learn everything I can about the Little Season stuff. And he's very insightful. And he was saying in something I was listening to yesterday, he was talking about this community, and he's way more tapped in than I am, and watching the growth and watching the evolution. Because I've taken chunks, there have been periods of years where I checked out, I was doing other stuff. And sort of how we've been able to go from like looking kind of ridiculous to and especially as people realize we're right about a lot of stuff, having the look and feel be much more professional and be more compelling. And I think that's a great step. And I would like to propose that there's another step that we should consider, and one that I will be doing my best to embody. And that is step into strong leadership. This is something that kind of drives me crazy. And, if I'm criticizing someone that sounds like you or someone you love, like, this is out of love. Like, this, I view myself as, and people, what I'm talking about, this is us, but okay, there's kind of a trope here, and it's like putting it's sort of coming from a defensive position, and it's like making ourselves weak so that we appear less threatening. And I think we got to stop. So it's stuff like okay, sometimes it's appropriate to say, but like saying all the time, I'm not an expert, I'm just a guy, I'm just asking questions, don't listen to me, do your own research. Like, we need to keep having humility, but I think we should think about, and this relates to politics, because when we're talking about politics, I don't just mean you gotta pick between the two, Nephilim clowns. I mean getting involved. I mean sometimes picking, sometimes voting for our values, even if we don't like the representation of the values. But I'm talking about, we're on the cutting edge of something. And no, we're probably not right about everything. And no, like, the world isn't ready for a lot of our ideas. But I think it's kind of time to stop just being the cutting edge and start being the tip of the spear. Alexander the Great did not get up in front of his men and say, just think we should explore this idea. I'm thinking about invading the East. you know, do your own research. You know, don't I don't want anybody to think that I'm maybe trying to start something or, like we need to be leaders. A lot of what is we view as a problem with politics is it's in our own brain. It's how we think about it. We have been brainwashed to be confused as hell. Men are supposed to be leaders. Women can be leaders too. Leadership means decisiveness. It means clarity of speech, clarity of vision. It means taking a risk. It means, you know, charging ahead, knowing you don't know all the answers and that's okay, and trusting in God, and constantly, like privately, mainly, let God know your doubts. You don't need to let everybody know your doubts. So yeah, if I can play some role in that, I would find that to be very meaningful. So in Ecclesiastes, he says, the rulers do represent the people. We can't just say, well, those people they're all demons, but we're not. In James 2:17, so faith also, if it have not works, is dead in itself. We have to do stuff. God put us here and gave us free will and gave us arms and legs and hands and a mouth so we could do things and take risks and fight for Him and for what's right, for goodness. And goodness is under attack. And just because it's Satan's little season, same with, people are doing the same thing. I'm not attacking us at all. Like, it's not enough just to say, oh, they were using the threat of tribulation to keep us scared, and so we didn't do anything. So now we know it's Satan's little season, and now we understand why everything is evil, and we can still not do anything. Like, just as there was in the millennial reign, as we consider it, there were enemies of Christ, so too there are warriors for Christ today. And we have spiritual support from Christ, from the saints, from angels. We don't have to just, and I know I'm preaching to the choir on a lot of this, we don't have to just rethink and revisit the Bible, and think about what we're reading for ourselves more. When you guys know, we already did this for what is the shape of what we're standing on, So we need to do this for politics too. How do we look at our role in the world as being good citizens, being good members of our community, being good caretakers of the future? We have to do things. In 1 Corinthians 3:9, for we are God's coadjutors. You are God's husbandry. You are God's building. God works through us. Ephesians 2:10, for we are His workmanship, created in Jesus Christ in good works, which God hath prepared that we should walk in them. We should always be asking God, what work have you prepared for us? And things are not good, A lot of you are in countries whose, in America, I have the benefit of at least hoping that the new leadership cares about me and has a sense of right and wrong. And a lot of you are very aware that the leadership in your country hates you seems to be trying to get rid of you, especially those of you in certain countries in Europe. And, my heart goes out to you. What work is like, we've got challenges in front of us. I don't see this being a case of, oh, we're in the little season, that makes sense. So just endure while the devil, rapes us and our kids until Christ comes back. Hope it's soon. When the tribulation did happen and Christ came back, he came back with an army. And also, these are not, for the most part, demons that are doing this stuff to us. These are humans. They're mortal people like you and me. And they are not more powerful than us. They're in covenant with Satan. Our covenant with God is far stronger than that. And that's why he's got to deceive us so much. That's what the deception... if Satan was more powerful, I know you guys know he's not, but if he was more powerful than God, then he wouldn't be the father of lies. He would just be the father of smashing us, He would just kill us. He would just smash our souls. He's got to fool us because humans without God are pretty screwed, and I was one for a long time, and you're sort of at the whim of Satan because the fallen, highest fallen angel is more powerful than us mortals. But although he can only do what God permits him to do. But, it's only through our faith in Christ that gives us that protection. So we have it. And the veil is coming off of our eyes, and we can do things. It's scary, it's risky. We can get persecuted. And, everything I'm suggesting is not suggesting anything like be violent or anything like that. This satanic system knows very, very well how to handle violence. In fact, and there's a quote that I have here somewhere. One of the easiest ways you can make yourself a useful idiot for Satan is to join some violent cause. They make those on purpose, right? There are violent groups that are funded, created, by the establishment that they appear to oppose. That's like pretty basic stuff. But, God gave us an instruction manual in the Bible. And we also have a lot of our history is fabricated, but, there's a lot of good stuff in there. Satan will love you to toss out all of history. Like, yeah, we got to re-examine all of it, and a lot of it is a lie. But if you throw it all away, then he's accomplished what he set out to do, which was to disconnect you from history and from the truth, deracinate you. No roots. Wherefore, my dearly beloved, work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who worketh in you, both to will and to accomplish according to his good will. Philippians 2:12 and 13. I've got a quote from St. John Chrysostom in his homily, Matthew 20. God does not do all things himself, lest he deprive us of free will and the glory that comes from acting. He bids us to contribute our part that we may shine his light. Psalms 32:12, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people whom he hath chosen for his inheritance. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. Okay, this is Christian nationalism. At least this is how we talk about this in America. We should fight to make God the Lord of our nation if we want our children to be blessed. And yes, There are forces bigger than us. Yes, Satan is loose. Maybe it's a humanity plays a part in the negative side because Satan has to be able to gather his army. I think it's fair to assume that we play a part on the positive side. That Christians play a part. We're not just here. Our responsibility isn't only our own souls. It's the people. It's the people around us. It's our community. It's the children. So, yeah, I'm absolutely a Christian nationalist. I want my values represented in my government. It's as simple as that. I was talking earlier about how we are, have been so confused and brainwashed. In America, it's all about freedom and liberty. And, some of you are aware of the kind of dark side to that, right? Liberation from what exactly? Liberation to do what exactly? And we love our freedom of speech, and I think that I love my freedom of speech too. But then they put limits on it, right? Saying, there's always been limits on it. You can't do hate speech, and then a group of people that hates you is going to decide what hate speech is, and define it as you defending yourself and your people. But you can blaspheme all you want. You can do pornography. The joke in America for the lost boomer conservative. It's like, I might disagree with what you said, but I'll die defending your right to do it, right? And that's like the most American virtuous thing you could say. And then they'll apply this to the sickest stuff, this is an exaggeration, but I might disagree with your blaspheming the Lord, but I'll die for your right to do it. I might I might disagree with your distributing hardcore pornography to children, but God bless it, I'll die defending your right to do it. We're lost. Those are the conservatives. So we got a big problem here, but some of us, those of us that are on the cutting edge of understanding some of this other stuff, our potential in politics is very high, and we already are good at sort of knowing when to say what, when to say it all totally outright, and when to couch it a little bit, how to phrase it when you're around different people. That's all we got to do. We can't just check out, man. When we're evil fills the vacuum, and that'll go right into your house. If for those of you who are parents, if you fail to lead in your house, there's a phone in your house, there's screens in your house, and they will lead your children, right out from under you to hell. And so we got to look at the world of politics the same way. We can do a lot. There are victories. In Satan's little season, there are victories. And like I said, the stakes are the souls of the people we love. They're our own souls. They're the souls of the future of our nations. It's Matthew 5:16, so let your light shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Let other people see why the faith works. By doing good things. By fighting evil. Strive for justice for thy soul, and even unto death fight for justice, and God will overthrow thy enemies for thee. That's still in effect. That's Ecclesiasticus 4:33. That's still in effect. God will overthrow our enemies for us. I've seen it happen. And I know God's still doing miracles for it. I've had them in my life. I think we all know that. None of us doubt the power that God still has. And, the system being terrible design, the system being designed to be, like that joke or meme that's like someone says the system is failing, we have to fix it. And somebody else says the system is working precisely as it was designed to work. We have to break it. Either way, it takes men being leaders. It takes engagement in politics. And like I said, not everybody's cut out for it. Not everybody's called by God to do it. We need the monks to just be praying. Christ endured. He picked up his cross and he endured a lot. So, I think we could do a lot more. And I mean me too, because I'm not saying I've done nothing really. This is the biggest thing that I've done this stream, and I've got 22 episodes and handful of people in my audience. But this is appeal to all of us, and we have to fix our brains in terms of protecting our people and our nations. It was never Christian to let your nation be invaded. And this is where like some of the throwing out the baby with the bathwater stuff for throwing out history, and then also there's really a tie-in here in my view. And listen, I love my brothers in Christ no matter where you're coming from, and I have a lot of respect and love for Protestants and a lot of what they do. But what I see is that the Reformation, even if you say, give the benefit of the doubt and say it was necessary or it was overall good, a lot of stuff was thrown out. A lot of baby was thrown out with that bathwater. And these are just two examples of how we can get lost without the past. And, it's by design with the deception in the little season and everything like that. But are fighting for your people, having a people, being proud of your people, loving your people. There's absolutely nothing unchristian about that. And don't let anybody tell you that there is. You need... God created the nations, this is biblical. And there are nations at the end. We are not a hodgepodge global utopia at the end of time. So the nations are going to be there. And, a lot of people, I think Christians and especially Christian Europeans, by God's grace, are have a lot of goodwill and have a sort of a forgiving and kind nature about them. And not always, I'm not saying anybody's perfect or anybody's better than anybody, but I've traveled the world, I've lived abroad, I've spent 4.5 years living abroad in various places. And, a lot of people, there's a lot of hate. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of hate for us, for Christians, for white people, for Americans, or English, or Irish, or Germans. And you don't let people who hate you into your house with your kids, And what's facilitating that is all politics. You know, I mean, it's mortal people. You know, people with names and addresses and agendas, and they're no more powerful than we are, and they just hoodwinked us, working for, they work for Satan, and we got to do something about it, man. And we have to fight the good fight. Our Christianity would never tell us that we should sit on our hands and allow our children to grow up much, much less safe than we did. And that's been happening for a few generations in most of the places that we come from. Just looking at these quotes. Justice exalteth a nation, but sin maketh nations miserable. We're talking in terms of nations, and so a lot of what they're saying is that there's never just a political solution. It's always a spiritual battle underneath all of it. But like, we still have to act. We have to act in the matrix that is in front of us. So let's talk about Trump. Let's talk about Trump. Is he a defender? Is he a deceiver? And how do we know? And we don't. And what do we do? There's a couple of things that define my politics that are sort of outside of the realm of politics. One is I hate defeatism, and I hate accelerationism. Accelerationism is when you say things need to get worse before they get better, and so I will allow things to get worse on my watch, or even worse than that, I will accelerate things getting worse. The flip side of that is when you see a better option, we can't let ourselves overthink our way out of supporting something that might be good, something that represents our values in some ways. I was listening to, and I'm not trying to single anybody out, and I'm bringing him up a lot because he's a leader in this community that I'm brand new to, and I'm, not saying I know better than it. I'm doing that thing that I was saying we shouldn't do. But this is all love. We can disagree. We can learn from each other. We can have engaging discussions, and this doesn't need to be divisive. I'm been getting slowly a headache as I'm talking here. Like getting brain fog a little bit, so bear with me. I agree with something that Paul said, which is that some of the you're gonna eat bugs and be happy stuff is so over the top and so obviously evil that we should be suspicious that the plan for them was to take that forever. It seems like they were trying to build up a reaction to it. And given that, one could certainly think that Trump might represent the sort of, the Masonic, when they need a hero, we'll provide for them a hero. But I'm going to make two arguments of why we should support Trump, given that understanding. And I mainly mean for people in the United States. For those of you who are elsewhere, if there's anybody that is seeming like coming from the same place, then I mean that person. One is that there's a chance that it's not that, right? And even given them building up those things to fail, I think there's a pretty good chance, this is sort of what I believe, is that Trump may have inserted himself in what was supposed to be the controlled opposition to that, and is playing a very dangerous game, and is not that, and is sort of our guy, does believe in the good, wants what's best for my country and for the world, but not at the expense of our country. So what I mean by that is, if I was part of a group of people and we had a lot of money and we had a lot of power, but we weren't in power, and we were observing the people in power and noting that they do this thing, this pendulum, where they swing things so far this way that people demand it go the other way, and then they put their guys right in place to take it the other way, and then push it as far as they can that way until they, right, and just keep doing that forever. And meanwhile, it's not a pendulum that just goes like this. It's a pendulum, it has a direction to it that most people aren't aware of, and that direction is just pure evil, right? So when they bring it to the left, there are values that the left tends to hold very highly that are good. But they don't swing it as far as they can towards those. That's why nobody's ever happy, right? They swing it to the left to the worst stuff. And then when it goes to the right, they swing it to the right and they get rid of the worst of those things, but they swing it over here to the worst of the right. And there are plenty of bad things, This here, I'm not suggesting that, it's black and white here. So they push it to, and they do this, we see this where there's, in the United States, there's a group called Blood Tribe. I'm not pretending to have any inside information here, but I have heard pretty credible sounding stuff of that they're getting paid by bad actors that would be, a part of this thing, to come out with wearing black and red and swastikas and veins bulging out of their head, the thing that the Democrats fear and they keep their people terrified of. It's going to happen at any minute, and that they make all of the ideas of the right, which include like all of our past, monarchy, fascism, really like a strong leader doing anything, taking charge of anything, masculinity even, and they associate it with that. And then the same thing with the other way is, we have people who, I used to be a liberal. I was very much like a kind of Occupy Wall Street type, and I was concerned about the banks and stuff. And so they would make it look like anyone who's concerned about exploitation of banks. And now these days, in America, the conservatives are quite concerned, aware about the Federal Reserve and things like this, aware of how bad the bank bailouts of Obama were. But they associate those people with, communism and whatnot. The thing is that communism exists and is, in some ways that's a facade as well for something more sinister. But that power structure is global, whereas there's not as much a meaningful Christian right, other than what's grassroots for the most part. But imagine you're a group who love God, are Christian, love our country, are willing to die. Maybe you come from a family of people, a patriot family that, where every generation has signed up for the military or has been involved in civil service, public life, and you raise your children for that. Excuse me. And you're not stupid. You see how they keep doing this thing. They swing it to the left, swing it to the right, swing it to the left. Well, where's the vulnerability? When it's on its way somewhere and it's gathering momentum and it hasn't been taken too far and the people are behind it, you can't get in there. So what you can do is, when it gets all the way to an extreme and people are really pissed off and they're actually trying to destroy their own system to implement a new, worse system for you, when they're pushed it all the way to the left and they're trying to destroy our institutions and implement, take it as far as it can go all the way to global technocracy hell. That's where it's the most vulnerable. The people aren't on their side anymore. People are seeing how bad this is. They want it to go the other way. You catch that pendulum and swing it towards the good. And I think there is a good chance that that's what Trump is doing. Now, what if he's not? And I don't mean him being the mastermind of all of this. He's obviously a very bright guy, but this gets into the Q stuff. I wonder where some of you guys are on this. Some of you deep researchers, you deep rabbit holers. Because that was one of them for me, and that's what it is. That's what I believe is going on, and that Q is, people have a lot of misconceptions about it. It's a team of patriotic people who have some institutional power, including high in our military. Small group of people, 5 or 10 people, who really know what's going on and have planned this out, and they would have recruited. They would have been looking for someone like Trump and recruited him. And someone that can step up to the occasion, and it seems that he is. But what if he's not? Well, then what I'm supporting are the principles that he is espousing. I am supporting patriotism over hating your country. I'm supporting doing good for your country over, opening the borders and stealing all our money. I'm supporting law and order, persecuting criminals, keeping people safe over chaos. Right? So, if this starts going to a bad place, then that's why you don't put your faith in princes. That's why you can't get wrapped up in things. You have to continuously pray for discernment and use it. But in the meantime, I'm not too worried about talking to God, or St. Peter, and them saying, why'd you support Trump, if my answer is these are the values that I supported. I wanted my children, I wanted my community to be safe. I wanted economic prosperity. I wanted justice. I wanted Christianity not be. I wanted my fellow Catholics to not get thrown in prison for protesting the killing of children in the womb. And so, I think there's really a danger of overthinking our way out of that. And I think that we need to be careful, because I think that's a much worse place to be. Why didn't you stand up for anything? And we're, standing up for the truth is something, but what are we going to do with it? By their fruits you shall know them. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Matthew 7:16. That's how we can judge. And first, we got to keep an eye on it. So, but I'm not suggesting that we put all our eggs in one basket or anything. I'm suggesting we gather our eggs, we start putting them places. You know what I mean? Now, as a Catholic, my view on things is very Catholic. It's influenced the way I think about everything. And that includes politics and power. And I think that there's a lot to be gained by looking at this. We look at politics as a duty, right? It's not just it might, as unpleasant as it might be. That's how duties are a lot of the time. The church has shaped societies, and well into the little season, well into our modern age, there used to be something called the Legion of Decency, and so movies in Hollywood. Hollywood started getting a tremendous amount of power and influence, and the church was concerned for the souls of their people. And they saw that movies were putting things in them that would not be acceptable to society, and that was going to influence society. So some church leadership in the United States, Catholic church leadership, organized, and they boycotted Hollywood. And they were smart about it, and they did it at a time when Hollywood had borrowed a lot of money, invested in new technology, and they put out a movie. E. Michael Jones has some good stuff on this. Put out a movie that was, I forget what it was, but it was subversive. It was what Hollywood does with every movie now. But they didn't always have this power, right? And they boycotted it. And places like heavily Catholic cities like Boston, places in New England, Catholics wouldn't go. Back then, they were very obedient to things like this. And it could have put the Hollywood out of business. So Hollywood came to the table, and the church said, here are things that you got to not do. And as long as you stick to that, then we're good. But if you break these things, we will boycott you again. And it worked. And this is a pretty Catholic way of exerting power. We have unity. It's not always the Crusades, It's not always at the tip of the sword. It usually isn't. There's time for that. And that's another one of those things where, we think of the Crusades, and when I was growing up, it was George W. Bush, using this sort of language of why we had to slaughter Iraqis. And that was evil. But the actual Crusades were not. There were thousands of invasions by Muslims into Christian Europe, and they saw it coming again, and so they did something. They took the battle there, and to protect their people, their lands, their home, and so there's a place for that, but that's usually not what's called for. Usually, it's usually politics. That's what politics is. There's the whole story of how Hollywood destroyed the Legion of Decency and won. They won the battle. They did it very deviously. They made a movie about the Holocaust. The horrors of that. And they threw in a frontal nudity scene, which was not allowed. And it was one of the things, you can't do that. And they dared the Catholic Church to boycott based on a Holocaust movie. That's really a good example of how certain things are used to control us. So, as Catholics, we believe there's a duty. And we don't see power as a negative. We see power as something to wield. And St. John Chrysostom said, therefore the ruler must be feared, not because of his power, but because of his office, which is to promote virtue and suppress vice. That is what a leader is supposed to do. It's not separation of church and state always meant... You don't have a pope that's also the king. You don't have a king that's also the pope. You don't have the hierarchy of the church making laws. You don't have the hierarchy of the government dictating things about the faith. It wasn't, the president can't do something to promote virtue. That's insane. That's insane. The devil loves that. St. Ambrose of Milan in letter 51 to Emperor Theodosius. And yes, we do have to take these with some grains of salt. This is not scripture. You're a king and an emperor, but you're also a man. It is your duty to protect the church and the faith of your people, for in this you fulfill your office before God who has entrusted you with their care. That is what politics is supposed to be. And, we can fight for that no matter what time it is. So, I'm going to talk a little more about the definition, Catholic definition. I want to talk about the Catholic definition of liberty. Because Bishop Williamson, controversial figure, powerful man, God rest his soul, which I have a couple short clips for you. He's got a long series on this stuff, and it's mind-blowing. It's really worth watching. It had a big influence on me. Let's check it out.
God is a prison, and that man needs liberty, and therefore man must reject all the things by which God shapes, molds, and contains man. It's a recipe for disaster. Liberty, liberty, liberty. We're going to read what the modern youth, a lot of modern youngsters today have liberty. What do they do with it? Just get drunk. Get drunk and drugged. Because there's nothing there. Liberty for what? They're free from maybe their parents' household. They're free from dad's restrictions whenever they have, if ever they still go home. But what are they free for? Nothing there. Liberty is an empty concept for many people. Liberty from, I know what I'm I'm liberating myself from, but what am I liberating myself for? That's a different question.
Here's another one.
And poor dumb modern men.
So this is quite a few years earlier, if you can tell. This is 1996, and he's got a whole lecture series that looks like this. Phenomenal.
And poor dumb modern men, you see, the moment you say liberty, most modern men, it's like saying democracy. Ah, liberty. Ah, fascism. Yeah. People today don't think, they just have push-button minds. You push the right buttons and they all get gooey and feel good. You push the wrong buttons and they all start hissing and spitting. That's the way modern minds work. Sorry?
There is evil, fascism.
Well,
Burning of black church.
Yes, interesting. Yes, that's true. That's true. You could sort of say, we must use natural liberty in order to be liberals and not in order to be fascists. Yes, there is. Yes. Yes, that's true. We're at liberty for everybody except for fascists. Except for fascists, colonialists, sexists, racialists. Yes, it's a new morality, a completely new morality. So,
do whatever you want and think whatever you want, except for all of these things. Except for all of these things that either are approximate to or are satanic inversions of or distortions of everything that our ancestors believed. You do whatever you want as long as it's one of these new things that goes against the Word of God mainly. Heavy stuff, man. Heavy stuff. So yeah, we gotta. Yes, there is the charade. Yes, there is the clown show. Yes, there is the false dichotomy and the meaningless lines in the sand and the divide and conquer and all that stuff. Yes, but that's just all of the deception, all of the noise. There is a real fight for justice and truth, and there's already people doing it. We don't have to start it from scratch. You got some memes here, and then I'm going to end with what is going to be a controversial video. But yeah, I've came across a just gold mine of Catholic memes. As I was saying, we got to rethink everything here. Including our attitude towards Catholicism. I did this a few years ago when I decided to become Catholic. It took a lot. I was a conspiracy guy and pretty against a lot of Catholic stuff, and I said before that I view a lot of what's going on with the church as it's here to defend and protect the faith, not be part of the deception. So I am a Catholic. It's my duty to defend our faith for God and the church. This is what I started with. Born to reclaim the Holy Land, cursed to receive a warning from HR. I'm not gonna. I don't know. There's kind of corny reading memes out loud, This guy says I'm a Catholic, but Catholicism is responsible for the Crusades and colonization. He says, I just told you I'm a Catholic. You don't need to sell it to me. We have a perspective, and there's a lot of nonsense among us, and some of the worst offenders. You name it. We've got some of the worst offenders. We're the biggest denomination, but there's an old school view that I think really has remnants of what things might have been like in the millennial reign. That it preserved some things, some ways of thinking, some ways of doing that God built. So here's an example of we talk about like the satanic inversion of Santa Claus. Well, it's not just corrupting the story of Christ and the North Pole, but Saint Nicholas was an actual guy. And here he is embodying this sort of more forceful, Christianity with some fight in it. The real Saint Nicholas is a real story. At least, Catholics have kept this story for many centuries, however many it actually was since then. The real St. Nicholas punched the heretic Arius in the face in what they say is 325 AD because he said that Jesus was not equal to the Father, denying the Trinity. We need more St. Nics. This is the energy. Yeah, I'm not saying go punch people in the face, but, we can all get it. The church has been fighting politically for a long time. Pope Pius IX, this is 1871. I've always condemned liberal Catholicism, and I will condemn it 40 times over if necessary. I mean, hard to argue that this guy is not on the right side of history here, right? We have the Spanish Catholics saying, "Miscusi, but the cannibalism must stop." And we have people crying. We've done good things. Here we have SpongeBob giving not a care as somebody tries to punch him in the head, and he is representing the Catholic Church as he's being attacked by pagan Rome, Islamic hordes, the Reformation, the French Revolution, Napoleon, the modern world. We just keep chugging along, man. We're here to preserve what God put here, keeping it alive. And it's crazy how much how many lies there are about the church. That's one of the things that sold me on it, honestly, is you realize that evil exists, Satan is real, and that there's one institution that is hated the most. Um, you know, a lot of Jewish people hate the Catholic Church particularly. Satanists try to steal the Eucharist from the Catholic Mass to do their Black Mass, implying that they believe that that alone has something special to it. And, not just enduring, but, with a smile on our face, doing what we do, worshiping God. Yeah, here's a crazy one. People say, people actually think this. They say the Catholics put Jesus, we have the crucifix instead of the cross because we like to keep Christ on the cross, and like we're celebrating his suffering. And like it could not be more wrong, Like I give that any Christian loves Christ, The amount of lack of charity, just thinking the worst. We want to remember his sacrifice for us. That's why I wear the crucifix around my neck. I have it on some of my clothes. I have the crucifix. I have it on my wall because I don't want more than, I don't want an hour to go by that I'm awake, that I forget about his sacrifice, his suffering and sacrifice that he did for us. Like, yes, the resurrection is sort of the miracle. Yes, the ascension is also very important. He's God. We know he can do the miracles. What's kind of the most incredible is that he was willing to sacrifice in the way he did because of his love for us. That's something that you might not expect, from a God. And this is how we think of saints in heaven. They say it's another thing. We're always told that we're worshiping saints. Even very charitable people say, yeah, we love the Catholics. They just shouldn't worship Mary, though. Shouldn't worship saints. The saints are alive, and they're rooting for us. Communion of saints in heaven, watching you overcome instances of temptation and hardship. Just the most stoked for us ever. Cheering us along. Like, yes, it's all for God. They have no power. They don't get any glory. But like, it's just between me and the Lord thing. Like, well, you still talk to your family, right? You still have friends. You still have other people that matter, including in your spiritual life. You still have a priest or a pastor. It's not just, we live in a dynamic world with all sorts of beings in it. And we got saints. There's saints in heaven. They're rooting for you. I thought this is just a classic. It's kind of funny. The beauty and power the wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. I have seen people who have demons run away. This is kind of funny, but there was this, I'll give two examples. One's me and one's my wife. And this was back when it was me, like I was not following Christ at all. But I've always had a sort of deep passion about justice and truth. And my roommate's ex, who she had a kid with, had a girlfriend, and they'd come over, and I didn't even do anything or say anything. She was like scared of me, like because of there's some goodness I think that God put in me, But the most the most dramatic example I've ever seen of this, a coworker of mine had this girlfriend, and she's like a Satanist, like bad. It's all about drugs. She had a little kid. She was like abusive to her kid. Like she was so comfortable being sort of abusive to her kid, she would do it in front of people. It was like she was gross. And my wife is she's a Christian. She's like a deeply devout Christian, and had she's got a aura to her that's like she's got an aura of goodness. And I know I'm obviously biased, but like people tell me this, I'm really blessed to be with her. I feel like I shouldn't have concluded the one about myself because this is the good part, and I'm not trying to talk myself up here. And I'm literally trying to give an example of like this is what's going on here with the like yeah, they just want to get out of the way, or maybe some being respectful, but like just the fleeing, like my wife opened the door to our neighbor's house, and she was kind of coming out, and this Satanist woman like turned white and screamed. She was terrified for a moment, and I really do believe it was like she's got she's a Satanist. She summoned demons. They live in her, and there is a purity that God gave my wife, and that she's cultivated through her love for him, that just terrified this woman. So this last clip I'm going to play, this is Nick Fuentes. If you don't know him, he's a controversial political guy, Catholic, and he's had an influence on me about the intersection between faith and politics, and what it really means to fight for your people, and to that dissecting how we've been made to feel ashamed, and that we feel like we're not allowed to fight for our people and for ourselves, and that this ties into what I was saying about nation and protecting your people, and it also and wielding political power as a responsibility, but it also ties into this. We need to step up. We need to really be leaders. We can't make ourselves small all the time. We can't let everybody know. I know it's safe, it feels good, but we can't be always letting everybody know, listen, I'm not really a threat. I'm just a guy talking. All right. Don't censor me. Don't look at me. Don't cancel me. Don't try to get me fired. Don't call me names. I'm not a threat. How unreasonable of you would it be to attack little old me? I'm not a threat. We can't be doing that. And this guy's speaking directly to that.
$350.
That's a good idea, man.
Why and War Palestine sent $350.
That's a good idea. Maybe I'll do
You
that.
want to protect your race and the overall demographic in your country. You're not a white supremacist. Even if white supremacists still exist these days, it's irrelevant because we are all getting screwed. I do agree with Sneeko on the topic of race because that's the Muslim stance. However, I don't believe in shoving it down people's throats, all the while jeopardizing a necessary alliance against a powerful enemy. 07.
Yeah, see, I appreciate the big super chat, but, that attitude is kind of part of the problem. Because, see, this is a Christian country and you're a Muslim, and I assume you're not white. And the problem is non-white people telling white people what they can be or what they are. The problem is non-white people who have this entitlement to say, well, here's how you can express your identity. You are a white supremacist. You are not. I don't actually care what non-white people think about whether I'm a white supremacist or not. Okay? Because it's my race that is dying. It's my race that is being genocided. It's my race that is being replaced in the native land that my ancestors built, specifically the city of Chicago. People say, that's not an English name. Yeah, well, my ancestors literally built the city we've lived in for 5 generations. And so there's just something deeply wrong with Muslims who are like essentially foreign and coming in and saying, yeah, well, you can't say this or you can say that. If you say that, it's bad. Here's the thing. My race being genocided is a much bigger problem than whether we're a little bit offensive to people that just got here, okay? Haitians do not belong here. They genocided all the white people on their island. Why would we want them here? They cannibalize their own people today, and they eat dirt. Why do we want them here? They don't belong here. And if I talk about it in a certain kind of way, Muslims who do not practice the religion of my ancestors, who are not part of the race of my ancestors or the civilization of my ancestors, are going to tell me in my language that that's unacceptable? We're going to go a very, 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 very long way before what we're doing is more severe and more concerning than what is being done to us. You understand? Our race is being castrated. Black people can be masculine. Black men can beat the shit out of their girlfriends, and they can be masculine, and they can be a baller and a boss and a gangster. It's white people. It's white guys that are being taught from a young age that they're pussies, that they have no balls. They get called white boys, this diminutive shit. They get taught to hate their own people, to apologize for who they are. They get bossed around by their women, and God forbid we raise a hand to them, or we say something out of line. It's abuse. It's emotional abuse. I was essayed. I was raped. Okay? While we're being replaced by immigrants from the third world. And, you know, people like Sneeko and Muslims tell me, you're taking it too far? We will tell you when it's gone too far. How about we'll tell you when it's gone too far? We'll let you know. As a matter of fact, you'll know it. You'll know when we've gone too far. We haven't gone nearly far enough. You think this is too far?
Something to think about. Like I said, this isn't just about politics. This is about survival, and this is about souls. It's the souls of people we love, souls of people that we bear some responsibility for. And that was you might think that was aggressive or overly racial or something like that. We live in an aggressive world, and God created the nations, and he created the people, the different peoples, and we have a right to care about where we come from and who we are. I've thought about this a lot because of I'm being mixed the way I am. I'm, for those of you who don't know, I'm half Ashkenazi Jewish and half German. My mother was born in Germany, and I've had to wrestle a lot with this stuff, and I've traveled the world, as I said, and I've seen how everybody cares about their people. And the only people who don't think in terms of what's going to be good for their people are like liberal white people. And a lot of other people will act like that's what they think, and it is a weapon against you. And you can love everybody. You can pray for their soul, pray that they get right with God before they die, pray they don't go to hell, pray that they see the light, I could love Muslims from over here and then be over there. You know, I don't have a right to be where I am. And the conversation about these things, the mechanisms in which these things play out, are through politics for the most part. You know, it is through politics that people got in power in England, who at best allowed and covered up, and at worst helped facilitate the mass rape of English children by foreigners. You know, it's very dark and very serious, and it isn't something to take lightly. Hey, Chunky, I'm just wrapping up. Good to see you, man. It's not something to take lightly. It's a responsibility, and we got to stop being afraid. We've been so demoralized and bullied that we started to see standing up for ourselves and our people and what we love, what we value. You know, I love and I value the things that Europeans built. You know, no matter what time it was when they built it, and what they build today too, not just in the past. You know, the stuff that we're creating now. And it's not to say other people don't create beautiful stuff, important stuff, but like, it's not weird that other people should feel the same way about their people, and it's not weird that like people from Nigeria love and appreciate the things that Nigerians do and create, because their values and their abilities are what made the things that they created. So I share values. It's like I used to love rap music. I still like some of it. And I was a big liberal, and I used to think like, I used to wonder if I'm racist, because I couldn't help but notice, you know, I'm a pattern recognizer. I couldn't help but notice that most of my favorite rappers were white guys. And I thought, you know, but there aren't that many of them. And what, am I racist? No, it's because, well, maybe I am, but it's because the things they're talking about more reflected my values. You know, they're more like me. And we got to just swallow. It's like, it's not even that hard of a pill to swallow. You know, like the liberals are all saying that like everybody's racist and white people are racist, and you just have to admit it. And there's some truth in that. Where they go wrong is like, they don't divide between hatred, so, you know, they say all that, and it's also the worst thing, and you have to do something about it, right? But they go wrong. They don't divide hatred for other people with these virtuous things of loving your own people, wanting to protect them, seeking what's good for them. A certain amount of tribalism is good. People take it too far. You know, there's a particular group of people that's very well known for that, and a lot of people do. But they don't delineate, and so they've made it necessary just for white people to like weed out this part of themselves that is like any sort of identity and appreciation for anything, and it's absolutely insane. And it's weaponized propaganda. It isn't a worldview that has any sort of cohesion or comes from any sort of place of truth. It's a weapon to get rid of you. And there is a difference, you know, as Christians. Now there are people on the right, and I see some of them as allies, and some even as friends, who don't make that distinction either, but from the other side, and they say, you know, there's virtue in hate, right? That's in the Jewish religion. And so of course it's a virtue to hate your enemies. That's what most of the world thought, I think, you know, without Christianity. And we don't believe that. We don't believe in hating people. You corrupt your own soul when you hate. You know, everybody is here because God, infinite loving God, in his wisdom, decided they belong here in this beautiful creation. But he didn't pick for them to act evil, and he didn't pick for them to have to live next door to you, you know, with 12 people in a room and harass your kids. So, yeah, like, I want to bring worlds together. That's what I've always done this in my life in small ways. Like, I have very different friend groups, different parts of my life, and pull them all into a room, you know, throw a party, bring them all there, and just watch watch sparks fly. Watch the my skateboard buddies talk to my music buddies, talk to my school buddies, whatever, my work buddies. And that's sort of what I'm aiming to do here in a way. Is I know a lot of people who are very, very savvy about a lot of different things, and I want to bring them all together because yeah, we gotta come together. Memento Mori. Oh, welcome. Good name, man. Yeah, dang, man. I was just wrapping up, and I've kind of got a headache, and I've been going for an hour and a half, but now I got people. Shoot. Yeah, I think I gotta call it though. Thanks for jumping in. You guys can catch the replay. I will be back tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I'll be taking off Sunday, but either way, please like the video, subscribe, and I'll be here. God bless you guys. Peace out.